Hey y'all, I'm back with another moment of truth. And today I want to share my truth about my life in a cult. So I was once in a doomsday cult. Um, and that cult is called the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I know a lot of you have heard of them, but surprisingly, I found out like a lot of people don't know about the Jehovah's Witnesses. So yeah, um, I was in a cult called the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a doomsday cult, and they are very heavy believers in Armageddon coming and everyone being destroyed that are not members of this organization, of this cult. In the past, they've predicted, made a few predictions back years and years ago of days that the world would end, and obviously things didn't pan out the way they thought. Um, so yeah, this cult is run by 8 men out of New York, and they're the ones who put out all of the Jehovah's Witness publications that some of you may have received. And yeah, so they're basically in control of everything. Um, I try to take notes because it's a lot. I could like go on for hours about this. Um, so yeah, my life in the cult. So I grew up in it. Um, I was very isolated. This cult encourages you to, if you're a parent, not to let your children associate with those outside of the cult. So if you have friends at school, leave them at school. It's not a good thing to have kids from school come over or you go sleep over. If you go to work, they encourage you not to make outside relationships with people at work. So leave that at work. Um, Even so far as your family, if you have family outside of this organization, they encourage you not to associate with them outside of it because these people are what they consider to be spiritually weak, and hanging out with these people who are not in Jehovah's favor, Jehovah, their God, you could become spiritually weak. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of friends, and unfortunately, the congregation that I went to didn't have a lot of kids my age, so I was pretty isolated, um, pretty much. Um, it made my life pretty hard as far as going to school. Uh, I had friends at school who I wanted to hang out with, and I wanted to go to after school things and sports events and dances and stuff like that, but I really wasn't allowed to do any of that because it just wouldn't be a good thing to associate with people outside of the organization. So it was pretty difficult for me to make connections growing up, and I think that that carried that over into my adulthood. Even though I didn't know then, that I'm highly sensitive and I'm an introvert, and um, so that kind of also played into it. So the isolation, you know, tied in with the fact that I was already very introverted, and it just made it very difficult to make connections and friendships. Um, and so, yeah, the cult, they prey on people who are mourning, because the core belief of this cult is that they believe in a resurrection. So if you are a faithful servant of Jehovah and you were in this cult, this organization, and you die, then they believe that you'll be resurrected after Armageddon. You'll be resurrected, and you'll come back, and all of the Jehovah's Witnesses will live happily ever after on earth, while there are a number of Jehovah's Witnesses who will go to heaven and will be with God and help rule over those on the earth. Um, so if you find people who are mourning the loss of someone, and you have this message and they don't really have any core faith or any foundation or anything they believe in, it's easy for them to get swept up into this, and they hear, I can see my loved one again, and they miss all the red flags, and so it can be a very warming a warming experience when you first come into it, because they love bomb you for sure. You come in and you're new, and everyone just loves on you, and it's I want to say it's genuine from the people in these congregations. They're genuinely doing this. I want to say they're faking it, because there's a really nice people in this organization. They are just brainwashed, and they don't understand what it is that they're doing. But they love bomb you, and they give you so much love and attention, and you're really made to feel special. But the only thing is, if you ever leave, that's where the connection comes to it being a cult. When you make a decision to leave, or even if you are living your life in a way that those in the cult don't approve of, the way that they treat you changes drastically. And if you decide to leave, you're basically cut off. So back in 2017, I had an awakening, and more than one. And the first type of awakening I had was that this was a cult, and that I had been brainwashed, and I had a lot of questions, and so I started to research. Whereas before, I didn't really have questions, because I wasn't in a space to question anything. I believed it all. And also, we're very much discouraged from reading any information or watching any videos that speak against the Jehovah's Witnesses. You're very much discouraged from doing that. And so, if you're a faithful servant, then you would never go and do anything like that. You don't want to read anything that speaks against Jehovah or his organization, So I would never have done that. So 2017 was a period of a huge awakening for me, and my husband as well. And we began to research and find so many disappointing things. And the main thing that we found was the cult's history with hiding child abuse. And so that's where it kind of all went downhill for me. And that's something I can't make an exception for that. And, I had my own children, and I could never be a part of something that has a reputation for that. So that started my exit. And on top of all of that, I had was going through a spiritual awakening. And fast forward a couple of years, or a year and a half, or maybe not even a year, but I decided to leave. And it was one of the most difficult times in my life, because all of my family, well, I don't want to say all of my family, because I do have family I have quite a bit of family actually that's not in the cult, but I have not had a lot of communication with them over my whole life, because I was focused on the family that I had that was in the cult, and we're encouraged not to really socialize too much with family that's not in the cult. So I hadn't really built any relationships with my other family, only my family that was in the cult. So my mom, my dad already passed when I was younger, but my mom and my sisters, my brother, they were all in it. And I knew what came along with the decision I was going to make. And so there's two things that can happen to you. If you're living a lifestyle that is not approved by the organization, you can become what's called disfellowship. And that is when they cast you out, and you're, cut off. No one can talk to you, and you can come back. You can come back and attend the meetings. You still can't talk to anyone until they have decided that you have changed, and eventually you can come back and talk to everyone. Sometimes it takes 6 months, a year, whatever. And another thing that can happen is you can disassociate yourself. And that is what I did. I decided that I couldn't be a part of an organization that had a reputation for harming children. And so I decided to disassociate myself from the organization, meaning I didn't have anything to do with it. And so that's what I did. And I told my mom, and I thought there was a chance that she may not shun me. Me and my mom were very close, and I would talk to her, 5 or 6 times a week, multiple times a day. And so I thought things would be different. But I found out the hard way that she was a faithful servant to this organization, and she was going to do what she felt was the right thing to do, which was not talk to me. And they feel that they're doing it out of love, because if they shun you and don't talk to you, then it'll make you want your family back bad enough so that you will come back. And so that's why they're doing it. Little did she know, she didn't have any clue of, what was going on with me and my awakening, that I would never come back. And so I had a really hard time over the past, few years, healing through that trauma, that abandonment. I already had abandonment issues, and so that's really just, really dug it in for me. And it really gave me this fire and passion to want to help those who are in the position that I was in when I was so heartbroken and so defeated. I would cry every day. I would cry every single day, and it was more of an angry cry. I was mad. I was mad because my mother was most important to me, but my mother would throw me away like the trash, and that this organization, or these eight men who control this organization, had taken my family away, my mother away. And so I was just angry. And I always said, I'm going to do something one day about this. I'm going to be a part of the solution to this, out of my anger. And so now, being a life coach, a spiritual empowerment coach, I'm going to use my gifts and my talents to help that community of people, and to help them through that heartbreaking time, for those who have, found out what it really is and have decided to leave. I really want to use everything, all the experience that I have, to help them through their most difficult time. It really was a time of transformation for me, and I just really gained so much power. While I had my husband, it's really still hard to explain. I had my husband and I had his support, and he was going through the same things with his family because he was in the cult as well. But it's such a feeling of despair and loneliness, and just feeling like you've been just discarded and thrown away. It's hard to explain, and only those who've been there will get it. But I gained so much strength. I gained so much strength through this time, and I learned how to be alone. Even though I was, like I said, I had my husband, I learned how to be alone. I learned how to not need anyone, and it gave me so much power. And eventually, day by day, I stopped crying, and that pain lessened and lessened and lessened, and all of that pain turned into power. And I feel like I'm fully charged. I'm ready to do something about it, and I know that happened for a reason, and everything happens for a reason, but this specifically was something that had to happen in my life. It's a part of my purpose, it's a part of why I'm here. And I know that I'm meant to serve in multiple ways, but I know that I'm meant to help this group of people, because unless you have lived this, you just can't understand this specific type of trauma. And having grown up and lived my whole life almost in this cult, and having been thrown away and discarded, and living through all of this trauma and all this pain, I know that I can help them, and I want to help them, and I am going to help them. And so this has been, you know, a hell of an experience for me to go through. It's a lot. It's overwhelming to even think about. But I'm so grateful that, and I wouldn't take anything back. And I love that because you go through so many difficult things in life, and you get to the point where, you know, you've made it through. You know, you always have the, you know, the memory and a little bit of an emotional attachment to it, but you get to the point where you're like, I wouldn't change anything. And that's how I feel. Like I wouldn't change anything, because in order for me to be right here in this specific moment right now, everything had to happen exactly the way it did. And if anything would have happened any different than the exact way that it played out, then I wouldn't be here in this exact moment. And that's exactly what I need right now, is to be in this exact moment so that I can serve in the way that I need to serve. So, yeah, that's my story. That's my truth. I was in a cult. I was in a doomsday cult. And I guess I'll see you guys next time.